Good afternoon, good evening, students. I hope you're doing good. Today, I've decided to start a whole new chapter concerning linguistics, as you can see. This decision is based on the fact that many students have messaged me and have messaged the Facebook page requesting help or requesting lectures or explanations concerning linguistics or language, historical linguistics, the difference between historical linguistics and history of linguistics. So all these are related to one topic that we call linguistics. So before I start, um, leave a like for the Facebook page of this channel in order to be notified, please. And also subscribe if it's not done. If you are searching for more videos, please visit the channel and you will find plenty of videos concerning literature and also civilization or civilization. Literature, British literature, American literature, or British civilization and American civilization as well. I have organized them into playlists. You are going to find them there, and I hope that would be useful. So before I start, let's talk about the outline of our lecture today. We are going to start with linguistics. What is linguistics? Why is it called a scientific study of language? And also, what is language? The difference between language and a language with the article. And we are going to move to two important people or two important scholars that defined language. They are Sapir and Hall. After that being finished, we are going to move to the most important part of the lecture of today, that is the origins of language. We are going to deal with some hypotheses, of course, and also we are going to explain them and also exemplify if needed in order to make things easier and clearer for you, I hope. Now we shall start with linguistics. What do we mean by linguistics? Linguistics is the scientific study of language, right? It is universal. Almost every student knows this definition, but do they really understand what do we mean by scientific study of language? A scientific study or any discipline, because linguistics is a discipline, and any discipline that is considered to be as a scientific one has to um, has to be based on four steps that we call the scientific method. You might find more than four steps, but they all refer to the same process in order to judge a discipline for being scientific. Generally, these four steps are observation, hypothesis, experiment or experimentation, and result. Once your discipline has undergone these four steps, it is considered to be scientific. Otherwise, it's not, because linguistics before was not scientific. After the arrival of Ferdinand de Saussure, he is the one who revolutionized this discipline and he made it scientific. Unfortunately, he wasn't alive to witness it, but his students made sure um, they took his notes or their notes because he was a teacher, and they made, I mean, what he, let's say, what he taught them real, and this discipline became, as we know it today, the scientific study of language. I hope that is clear. And now we move to language. There are two things to know. We have language and we have a language. They are two distinct things or aspects. When we speak about a language without the article a, language alone in French is le langage, but a language in French is langue. So language is a system of communication, and we have two systems: natural language, artificial language. The natural language is the language we speak currently. The artificial language is a language that was made by men. For example, mathematics, informatics, even music. Anyways, when we speak about a language with the article, it means the different languages spoken around the world. For example, French, Chinese, English, Arabic, and many other languages around the world. Now, I hope that is clear for now. because it's very important to make that distinction, because when we are going to compare between human language and animal language, you need to have a good background about language in general. Now we move to two important people or scholars, Sapir and Hall. Both of them defined language. For Sapir, he said, language is a purely human and non-instinctive method of communicating ideas, emotions, and desires by means of voluntarily produced symbols. So according to Sapir, language, or the system of communication, is a purely human and non-instinctive method, which means animals are not included. He said that it is not our instinct to use language, but it is also only human and not related to animals. This is what he meant. And also, he added that it is considered to be a method of communicating ideas and emotions and desires. So whenever a human being wants to communicate, or whenever a human being wants to share their ideas, for example, they have to use language. And of course, it is voluntarily produced symbols. Voluntarily is exactly the opposite of non-instinctive. The instinct is not voluntary, right? But voluntarily, it is the opposite, which means the human being chooses to use the language. Now I hope that that is clear. Now we move to Hall. Hall is quite simple. He said that language is the institution whereby humans communicate and interact with each other by means of habitually used oral, auditory, arbitrary symbols. Habitually, it is related to habit. Oral, which means speaking. Auditory, which means hearing. Arbitrary, it is not agreed upon language. Now, symbols, it is everything that represents language. Institution means like the basis, or let's say the center, the thing that we use in order to communicate. I hope that is clear for now. We move to the origins of language. In terms of the origins of language, we have different sources, right? Um, we have the divine source, which means that language came from God. For example, the Quran says that language came from God, or even the Bible. So both of them agree that language came from God. This is one hypothesis. The other one is called the natural sound source, which means the imitation of natural sounds. And we have three hypotheses concerning the natural sound source. We have the ding dong hypothesis, we have the bow-wow hypothesis, and the poo-poo theory. Or you can say three of them are theories. So I'm going to explain. The ding-dong hypothesis, it is also what we call onomatopoeia or onomatopoeic words. These words are similar to, let's say, the noise they describe. For examples, when you say um, to knock on the door, the word knock describes the same sound of knocking. This is onomatopoeic words. Then we have, sorry, the bow-wow theory. It is the imitation of animal sounds. For example, to tweet, just like the sound of a bird. Then we have the last theory, that is the poo-poo theory, right? Which means language comes from, let's say, exclamations, or when you are responding to pain or pleasure. This is the language, or this is where language came from. Now we move to the third hypothesis, that is the oral gesture source, or also called the gestural hypothesis. Well, the gestural hypothesis states that human language developed from gestures that were used for simple communication. And language was derived from gestures. So the language as we know it was, or came from, the gestures that humans once used before. The fourth hypothesis is the natural evolution hypothesis. This one is kind of interesting. In the study of evolution or evolutionary development, there are certain physical features um, they developed in the human beings which gave them the opportunity or the capability of speaking. For example, some organs appear to be relevant for speech. For example, teeth, lips, mouth, a lot of organs that are situated in the human body, which are very necessary in order to produce speech. I mean, that's what Darwin says. And then we have the genetic hypothesis, or what we call innateness. Innateness says that every human being is predisposed to learn a language. So we are born with the fact that we can learn a language. It is innateness. Now, this is it for today's lecture. I hope it is easy. It is clear for you now. If you have any question, feel free to message me or ask them in the comments below, and I'll answer as soon as I see your question. And of course, um, before I round off, leave a like again and subscribe if it's not already done, and check the Facebook page. You will find some useful contents, of course. So I tell you, see you in the next video. Peace.